Mr. President, our channel broadcasts in Russian. With your permission, I would like to ask you the question in Russian.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, if we talk about last year, one of the landmark events was the liberation of 4 villages of Gazakh district from Armenian occupation. It is noteworthy that this, as it were, happened as a result of some form of dialogue between Yerevan and Baku. Moreover, in the same area, it was also possible to achieve the delimitation and demarcation of a certain section of the state border within a short period of time, which was actually surprising. I would like to know your opinion. What do you think was the key to success? What made it possible? What factors made this possible? Because after all, we have a very complicated history of relations with Armenia, to put it mildly, and all of a sudden there was this.
I would say that it happened as a result of a monologue rather than a dialogue. This is because it is clear that the dialogue with Armenia has failed for decades. Armenia's policy of occupation did not allow for any dialogue, and they used the format of negotiations as a cover-up for continuing their occupation. And the information that recently appeared in the media, namely the fascist statements of the first president of Armenia, once again confirms what we have known for quite a long time in principle, that Armenia was not going to vacate a single centimeter of Azerbaijani territory. They felt quite comfortable, as they thought, receiving billions of dollars worth of free arms from one ally, and political and moral support from the other two. Thus, all 3 co-chairs of the OSCE Minsk group, during the period for which I am responsible, were unequivocally on the side of the occupier. I am telling you this as a person who has been conducting negotiations within the framework of the Minsk group since 2004, and has met with this troika a great number of times. Therefore, of course, we could not expect to get these territories back through dialogue. Neither could we expect to restore our territorial integrity through dialogue. I think there were several factors that led to Armenia voluntarily, well, let's say voluntarily and coercively, returning these villages. The first is the patriotic war and its results. The second is the anti-terror operation. I think that this should have completely dispelled any illusions the Armenian leadership may have had that someone would confront Azerbaijan together with them. My last demand about the 4 villages of the Gazakh district was put forward to the Armenian Prime Minister almost a year ago, in February last year. This topic had always been on the agenda since the end of the Second Karabakh War. Before that, there was no point in talking about that because the main issue of occupation had not been resolved. But as soon as the trilateral statement was signed, actually even before it was signed, this topic was constantly on the agenda. I will tell you more. We also raised the topic of the occupied villages of the Gazakh district in the process of agreeing the conditions for the conclusion of the trilateral statement. It could not be done for certain reasons at that time, but we knew that we would achieve it in any case, just as we knew that we would regain full control over all the territories. Because the November 10, 2020 statement did not fully resolve the issue of occupation, as we all know very well. Therefore, acting with strategically rigid logic, we took steps consistently, purposefully, and persistently. The patriotic war, certain clarification of the conditional border between Azerbaijan and Armenia, the anti-terror operation, and 4 villages of the Gazakh district. One of them was occupied during the Soviet Union in 1990, while the other 3 were occupied in the spring of 1992. So last February, at a meeting with the Prime Minister of Armenia in Munich, this issue was raised in the form of a monologue. I am glad that we did not have to resort to other methods in order to return these villages. I think that the lessons of the last 4 years are being taken into account by the Armenian side, though not fully memorized yet. So I think this is a good first step, not only in the delimitation, but also in the demarcation of the border, which I think is a unique situation when delimitation and demarcation take place almost at the same time. So we achieved justice in this matter and regained our territories. I sent a group of specialists to these villages long ago. There is an issue of proximity to Armenian settlements there, and there are certain threats in the event of escalation. So I have asked for the most secure place to be identified for the construction of housing for the residents of these villages, so that their safety could be ensured. Because having such an aggressive neighbor, we should first of all think about the safety of our population. So I think that the process was as transparent as possible. It was also positively received by Armenia's new patrons, because the demarcation process also took place. And of course, it should give impetus to the clarification of the entire perimeter of the borders. The protocol that was agreed between the Armenian and Azerbaijani commissions on delimitation and demarcation says that many factors should be taken into account when clarifying the border: security, communications, settlements, historical factors, environmental factors, etc. That is, the existing conditional border between Armenia and Azerbaijan is not a dogma. And our position has always been that it needs to be clarified taking into account these and many other factors I mentioned. As far as I know, this month, we have at least put forward this initiative. The next meeting of the Azerbaijani and Armenian delimitation commissions should be held to continue the process of delimitation. We have our approach on methodology. We have given it to the Armenian side. And the verbal response we received, which has been reported to me, indicates that there are no particular objections from their side. So let's wait and see.
Поживем, увидим.